You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. The Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra opens their 2023-24 season this coming Thursday, September 14th, welcoming back violinist Vadim Gluzman to the Centennial Concert Hall stage to perform music of Max Bruch, plus writing of Bloch, Smetana, and Dvorak, played by the marvelous musicians of the WSO, led by Maestro Daniel Raiskin, who has joined me in the Classic 107 studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Simon. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome back to Winnipeg, Maestro.
Thanks.
Let me begin by asking, how was the summer? It was a busy one, travel-wise, for you, wasn't it?
It was busy. It's now about 2 months that I've been away, but a lot has happened, though I must say that it's probably by far the longest stretch, interrupted with some engagements that I've spent at home, or I should say in homes, because we were moving from our apartment in Amsterdam to our new home outside, and I realized that it's different doing it when you're 30 and when you're in your 50s. I can confess to that. And I think that also my legato technique has improved vastly after passionate painting of lots of surfaces and screwing together lots of pieces of furniture. So I would ask my musicians today after rehearsal, how do they feel about my hands and how I'm shaping the music now after I've spent so much time covered in paint and all other kind of construction materials.
Well, we all know that moving can be a joy, so it sounds like you're finding the joy in it nonetheless. Well, so happy to have you back here in Winnipeg to begin your 6th season as music director of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. I was looking back at how long 6th season this will be, and lots to look forward to on the program. I first want to ask about the return of your good friend Vadim Gluzman, with whom you weren't able to perform when he was last here due to just tragic circumstances. How wonderful it is to have him back here in Winnipeg.
You know, there are few people in everyone's career or life, whether it's teachers we come across or really important personalities that influence you or inspire you, but in your professional life, especially as a musician, being able to share a stage regularly with an incredible artist, a great violinist, instrumentalist, but also a really dear friend you can turn to in difficult times or enjoy sharing it. It's really a gift, and Vadim Gluzman is a person in that realm and that caliber. Indeed, terrible that I wasn't able to perform with him last time on his first visit here, but it's great that everyone supported my real sincere wish to bring him back to a concert that highlights music I have conducted on many occasions with him, Bruch Violin Concerto, but also a very peculiar, a special connection between music by Smetana and Bloch, seemingly so far away from each other, but actually connected on a very interesting level. We can talk about this later.
I do want to bring that up for sure. I do want to say, though, in terms of Vadim Gluzman, I was at that concert. He performed the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto on the violin, if I remember correctly, that Tchaikovsky had in mind when he wrote
it belonged to Leopold Auer.
Yeah, it's just a truly incredible instrument. And boy, oh boy, can he ever play that instrument. I was truly blown away. A performance that was led by Julian Pellicano. The Bruch Violin Concerto, not unlike the Tchaikovsky, is one of those that is a beloved part of the repertoire. It is one of those that is a go-to showpiece, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I have also a very special connection to that piece by virtue of how my life has unfolded. I served for 12 years as music director of the orchestra in Germany, where I was actually a successor some 100 years later to Max Bruch.
Oh, no way.
And this concerto was performed for the first time by the orchestra I was music director of. For 12 years, Staatsorchester Philharmonie. We also, in Koblenz, we also recorded that piece, and we were actually able to have a look at the orchestra material that was used by practically the same orchestra when was played and performed first by Bruch. And I've conducted with many different soloists and on tour, and it's really loved by audiences for its wonderful melodic palette. It's passion. It's wonderful form, referring also to something what Mendelssohn did. It's one flow of music, 3 uninterrupted or seemingly uninterrupted movements. It gives it kind of a rhapsodic sense and on a very high emotional level. And it has a lot of bright light and also some pensive moments, but really really beautiful music in all that sense.
Now, the program that has been put together for this opening night seems to be a very personal one, and you've sort of alluded to this already with a dear friend, Vadim Gluzman, coming back to town. There's also music of Bedřich Smetana, music that we heard just as you were making your way into the studio, a selection from Ma Vlast, My Homeland, music inspired by his homeland. There's also music of Ernest Bloch, and you, of course, have recorded his music before, his chamber music. You've been a proponent of his music. Can you tell us about the 3 pictures of Hasidic life?
You know, I don't know where I start, but this whole program, it has so many aspects of why is it so personal. For one, is that, over the last 10, 15 years, I was privileged to work with major Czech and Slovak, I grew up when it was all still Czechoslovak orchestras, whether in Prague or in Bratislava, where I'm also chief conductor of the Slovak Philharmonic Orchestra. And of course, the works by Smetana and Dvorak are absolutely one of the first things that comes to mind when you were touring, and now we were in Japan playing that music there. But there is this incredible sense, I always feel, there is really second to none how Czechs and Slovaks play their music. I think the closest then to them would be maybe Finns with Sibelius, but something happens on stage, the sense of pride, responsibility, love, connection on some kind of chemical level, I don't know. And over the years, I privileged to lead these ensembles in music. They know it's in their blood. It's not a music anymore for them. It's them. I've also, absorbed a lot of that emotion and knowledge, and also tradition. And that's one aspect which makes this program special, because I would be then able kind of sharing all this accumulative knowledge and love with audiences here. But very few people know that the melody Smetana uses in his Vltava, the main, beautiful main subject, is actually practically the same as the melody of the Israel national anthem. And, they both use, to some extent, which has been hotly debated, whether it's an old Italian song or an old Bohemian song, but it's a folk tune. Just realizing that it's the year of the 75th anniversary of State of Israel, which, being a Jew and being also in the city, which has a large Jewish community and which plays a great role also in the history of this orchestra, it's something I can't just walk by without noticing. And it's wonderful that this seemingly, unconnected works as Smetana and Bloch then fell into the same category of acknowledging something that I am, on both ends. And the other thing that's so important is that if you look at the score of Baal Shem, Scenes of Hasidic Life by Ernst Bloch, you can't fail noticing that a composition of this music is finished in August 1939. It's just a few days before Germany invaded Poland, and this whole horrific page in the history of universe unfolded in front of the eyes of the people, many of whom are still there. And now we are experiencing the same or comparable atrocities in Ukraine, which brings to mind lots of questions none of us has answers to, but we will have to find them. And Bloch himself did not try to stylize in a way, the Jewish music, trying to quote some traditional songs, but he was writing what he felt he was made of. It was him pouring his heart and his ultimate self onto page. And the violin is such a symbol of music in general, but the violin in Jewish culture is something that, from the pictures of Max Chagall or from music by Bloch and others, it is a symbol of a never-ending song, never-ending music. And as long as music plays, as long as people sing, people leave.
If you're just tuning in, I'm chatting with music director of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, Daniel Raiskin, about their opening night concert coming up this Thursday, 2 days away, September 14th at the Centennial Concert Hall. Program begins at 7:30 p.m. You mentioned the Bloch and the Bedrich Smetana, and yes, you remind me of that connection between the Vltava and Israel's national anthem, because we've spoken about that before. You mentioned your other engagements, because you're a very busy conductor, traveling all over. You just wrapped up a tour of Japan with the Slovak Philharmonic. You were talking about how that orchestra, or working with Czech orchestras, there is something that is just intrinsic in their ability to play music of Bedrich Smetana or music of Antonín Dvorak. And it is music of Dvorak that closes out the program, his 8th Symphony. Before we get to that work, I'm curious, how do you take what is inherent in those players that you work with when you're in Europe, and then do you help coach it out of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra musicians, or how do you go and approach that then when it's a different language?
I think it comes on an intuitive level. I'll throw a ball back. The day before yesterday, I conducted an open-air concert, very much in Bratislava, very much like we're used to the concerts in the Cinnamon Park or in Kenora or any other places. And this is not which is more of a novelty for us now. We're trying to build this tradition in Bratislava, actually taking the cue back from Winnipeg when I'm here. And guess what was on the program? Partly, of course, Vltava and stuff, but also film music by John Williams, by Alma Bernstein, and the knowledge I accumulated here, by the way, the brilliant musicians of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra are able to play sometimes very difficult and challenging scores by these film music masters with often just one rehearsal. And, much of this repertoire for the very first time in my life, I've conducted here in Winnipeg. Yeah. Well, now I feel an absolute routinier, going to in front, also with one rehearsal with my orchestra in Bratislava, and being able to lead them through that repertoire, which is maybe not like everyday music for them to play. Yeah. How do you do that? I think it's the sense of impulses, the sense of more of an intuitive level. It's how you bend time, like the John Williams and American movie music is more about rhythm and punch, and Indiana Jones and all these prairie flies and stuff. And with Dvorak or Smetana, it's more about being embedded into history and tradition, and this is what I'll try to take here.
Well, this 8th Symphony is, it's just a buoyant and confident symphonic work, isn't it? I mean, what a way to open a season with an 8th Symphony of Dvorak.
I think between the dramatic and charged with national identity issues, Symphony No. 7, and an ultimate pinnacle of his gift to us as humans, the Symphony No. 9 from the New World, which says actually more about Dvorak than about the new world he experienced. The Symphony No. 8 is really a music of joy, music of dance also, music of singing, music of humor, a music of hope and light, and it's great beginning and wonderful melodies. I mean, it was Brahms who said that this guy had melodies for 20 composers in his head and heart, and almost envious. And it just unfolds, and one brings to another, and you just it's like a magician's hat and rabbit ears. You pull them out one by one out of this cylinder, and this is what I feel when I'm conducting the Dvorak's 8.
It's something about even-numbered symphonies. I mean, thinking about Beethoven, the even-numbered symphonies versus those odd-numbered symphonies, there's that sort of change, right, that happens in them. Yeah. But what a treat to present this work to a Winnipeg audience, and what a wonderful showcase for the musicians of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra as well.
Absolutely. I think to start a season like that, it's definitely an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence. We're here, you're there. Come to us. We're having a great time coming back together and bringing this season to you. It's going to be a wonderful season. All of us do still have challenges to cope with, and we still are scarred and bruised with what happened with us, whether with pandemic we survived, or the ongoing war in Ukraine that does touch upon so many living here in Winnipeg, and not only. But I think it's all about a longer and further look into the future, and I think it's absolutely a right program to start with. I I can't wait. It's 1.5 hours, and then I'll be on stage for the first time this season with the orchestra, rehearsing it for the Thursday's concert.
Well, what a wonderful concert it will be. Again, that's this Thursday, 7:30 p.m. at the Centennial Concert Hall. Opening night on a Thursday, part of the new Thursday Classics series that the WSO has planned. Lots of wonderful music set to take the Centennial Concert Hall stage, and you can still get involved fully with the WSO season passes that I believe are still available, or, of course, individual tickets to any number of shows. But why not head down to the Centennial Concert Hall this Thursday for opening night? We have some tickets that are available up at classic107.com through the new ticket window. Maestro, thank you as always for joining me in the Classic 107 studio. Great to have you back in Winnipeg.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. I look forward to having more meetings with you during the year.
And why don't we hear a little bit of Vadim Gluzman's playing to close out this interview? Of course, he in town to perform the Max Bruch Violin Concerto alongside Maestro Daniel Raiskin and the WSO. This is a little bit of Edward Elgar's music. We'll hear La Capricciosa, just a delightful bit of playing. This is.